I'm Jay Webb. Welcome to Inside the Interview, a place where I turn the tables on decision makers at some of the world's most innovative companies and speak with them a little bit about their experience, but then more importantly, how they go about evaluating candidates during the interview process, and then more specifically, which 3 core competencies must they see in every candidate to decide to not necessarily make them an offer, but at least to say, I like this person enough that I want to move them to the next round of interviews. Today, I'm happy to have on George Donovan. George Donovan is the Chief Sales Officer at Millward Brown Digital. Millward Brown Digital is the leading digital expert in helping clients grow great brands. George, welcome to Inside the Interview.
Thanks, Jay. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So why don't we start there? Tell me a little bit about Millward Brown Digital and the scope of responsibilities that you have there.
Sure. So I run sales for Millward Brown Digital, or as we like to call it, MBD. Mm-hmm. And MBD, as you said, is the world's leader in understanding consumer research online, how consumers behave online, how they feel about advertisers, brands, are they favorable about their products, and about the brand in general. So through our research, we help brands understand what their consumers are thinking and doing relative to online shopping. And we also help them understand how they compare against their competitive set. So are they getting their fair share of business through online channels versus their competition? As you know, using Google, which every company does, you have information about your own site and how many unique visitors you have, how many shoppers come to your site, where they go, where they spend their time, but you don't have that information about your competitive set. Who are those other brands that you compare yourself to? And that's where we come in. So we can not only give them how consumers think and feel about their competition, but how do they think and feel about themselves versus their competition? And that's the insight that we provide to our clients.
And tell me more about your role as head of sales there as it relates to help drive the company's revenue and position the customers the way that you just described, but also in growing and recruiting for your sales team.
Sure. Yeah, we have about 40 people all in. We have an inside sales team as well as a field sales team, and we call on from the biggest brands in the world, like a Twitter or Yahoo or Google, a Ford, Bank of America, those types of folks, down to the mid-market accounts, too, where mid-sized businesses also need to understand how their consumers interact with them online. So we have a very vibrant, robust sales force and aggressive, at least I'd say assertive type of sales force, and as I said, a combination of inside as well as field, and we're always looking for more good people.
So let's say, for instance, I'm a candidate listening to this and watching this, and I want to be one of those candidates that's calling on one of those large brands and being a part of Millward Brown or MBD. Tell me, if I were to send a resume to George Donovan, what should I do? How should I craft it in a way that will help me stand out from some of the other candidates that you see on a regular basis?
Sure, that's a great question. The thing I like to see about a resume is a proven track record of success. And what I mean by that, Jay, is I like to see people with a stretch of success at a particular company. So I'm not a big fan of job hoppers, somebody who's been in a job for a year or two, every 2 years, every year and a half they change jobs. That is a big turnoff for me. I look for people who can sustain 3, 5, 8 years runs, if they have that type of tenure in the sales force working. I like to see those kinds of runs of success because that shows me that the salesperson secured the job, did a good job, kept exceeding quota year over year, and had sustained growth over a period of time. That's my number one indicator of success with a candidate.
Okay. And so stability essentially is what it comes down to, because you can see that proven track record of success. Within that stability, let's say somebody's been at a particular, let's say over the last 10 years let's say over the last 15 years they've had 3 employers, right? For you, average of 5 years, that's good, right?
That's phenomenal.
You'll be happy to see that. Okay. All right.
I'd be thrilled to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm okay with a false start, right? Somebody had a bad run in between there and just had the wrong pick of a job, did a year, in between a couple of those longer term jobs. That's perfectly fine too. We all make mistakes, or it just didn't work out for some reason. But as I said, the new job every 12 to 18 months is a big turnoff for me.
And so within that, right? Let's say they're averaging 5 years. Within those 5-year stints, define for me, if you can, what are you looking for, George Donovan, or any chief sales officer really, on their resume when you say proven track record? So they've been there. What have they done? What do you want to see?
Sure, I want to see a couple things. Depending on the role that I'm looking to fill, we generally have hunter-farmers in our organization, people who can manage their business once they win it, but they have to go win it, right? So I like to see somebody who's opened up new doors and has demonstrated the ability to create something from nothing. And then once they get in that account and open the door, what was their strategy to sell the initial offer? I call it the land and expand. Right? How did they land the account, and then what's their strategy to expand the account? How did they go deeper and wider, find new contacts, new lines of business, get referrals within their accounts, and grow that account consistently year over year? That's the piece I look for when people stretch.
And now, let's say somebody has sent their resume, or in conjunction with sending their resume, they want to introduce themselves, right? So either a cover letter or an introductory email. First, how much time do you actually spend reading either a separate cover letter in a document or the opening email? And then also, what would you like to see in that email or cover letter that'll compel you to open up their resume?
Sure. Couple of things. One is I'm not a big fan of generic cover letters. I don't read them. So I'd much rather have, if you're going to do a cover letter, take the time to make it very specific to our company and what we do and how your experiences can enhance what we do and why you want to come to work for us. If you're not going to do a customized cover letter, I would say just do some very hard-hitting bullets in the front of the email with your resume attached as to why you're a good candidate or why you're a good fit for Millward Brown Digital, and what your value is. Because let's face it, Jay, with traveling folks like myself and you, we live in a mobile world. So if you can catch people's attention in the headline of your mobile device, that's what it's all about. It's hard to read extensive cover letters when you're traveling like that.
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's say somebody's sent you their resume. They've gotten your attention through the cover letter or the email, and they've they've jumped those hurdles, so to speak, and now It's time for them to sit and meet with you. How should that person prepare to meet with a head of sales at any company, for that matter?
Sure. I think of a few different things here. One is understand the landscape of the company you're interviewing with, right? Who they are, what they do, who their competition is, what the sales force looks like, how it's structured today, how would they fit into that sales organization, what value do they bring, the concept of hunter-farmer, what is MBD, in our case, looking for? Are we looking for a hunter, a farmer, or a combination of both, and making sure that they're able to articulate how their value proposition will help us fill this role. Right? That's huge for me. And then when I think about answering questions, Jay, I had a great piece of advice from, I'll give my older brother a lot of credit. He's a very successful sales guy and 15 years my elder. So I remember going on my first job interview coming out of college, and he said, if you find yourself speaking for more than 60 seconds, shut up and ask a qualifying question. And I've always taken that advice and put it into play, not only with interviewing, but also with selling. And candidates who are succinct in their answers and then qualify me to make sure that the answer has been answered properly and don't go on too long, because I think that's a big pet peeve of mine also, is I ask a simple question and 10 minutes later they stop talking. I can envision them doing the same thing to the customer, which I know is a red flag.
Let me ask you this. How does one know when they should stop and they know that the answer that they gave is sufficient enough?
Sure. Number one, look for visual clues. Often I will be nodding, or I'll even auditorily say, "I got it. That's great. I got it." And candidates will keep talking on the same point. And I've actually had to stop a few candidates and say, "Listen, I'm good. I've got the answer. You did a great job," and stop them, and then give them another question and see how they respond to that one. And if they keep going with the same type of behavior, it's over. It's over. And I've stopped interviews 10 minutes in where I just knew that this candidate's behavior in the interview would translate to their behavior in front of a customer, and I knew they wouldn't be the right candidate for me.
And don't you think that? Well, I don't want to lead the question, but I guess I will. Shouldn't the candidate be aware that they've given us that their answer is sufficient enough without reading body language or without listening to those verbal cues, or is that something that just needs to be done?
I think they should be aware. And there's nothing wrong with giving some of the answer, like I said, 30, 60 seconds, and then stopping and asking, did that cover it, or would you like some more information? Or would you like a little more detail on that? There's lots of ways around it.
Right.
It's just being self-conscious, self-aware, and not talking ad nauseum about a simple question that's been answered 5 minutes ago.
Right. Yep. Okay. Makes perfect sense.
But it happens a lot. I'm sure you've seen it too. It happens a lot.
All the time. All the time. I was actually having a conversation with somebody recently about giving unnecessary information, right? In other words, there's a difference between talking too much and then giving unnecessary information. If you need to be thorough, that's great. Be thorough. But to give unnecessary information is a no-no. So
exactly.
So that's one common mistake that it sounds like folks make. 'Cause my next question was going to be, give me 3 common mistakes that you see. So not knowing when an answer is finished, so to speak, and speaking too much would be one. Give me 2 more that you typically see that you think candidates should try to stay away from.
Sure, absolutely. Second one would be at the end of the interview, not closing or clarifying for next steps. And again, this is one that you would think would be innate with salespeople. And I'm not expecting the hard close, can I have the job right now? I'd be okay with that, but they don't even need to do that. Frankly, if they were just to say, George, can I have your honest feedback as to how you think today went? How did I do relative to your questions? Do you have any concerns? What would be the next steps? And getting them to drive to a clear next step with the decision maker would be a minimum expectation after an interview with a salesperson. And I would bet that 50% of the salespeople I interview do not do that. And that's a big no-no. Because again, that behavior is going to translate to their behavior with customers. So that's one. 2, we talked about, right? This is the precursor to the interview, which would be the resume. And there's not a lot you can do about job hopping if it exists. Obviously, you need to tell the truth and don't want you to hide it. But if you can show some clear, demonstrable track record of success. And then number 3 would be that the over-answering of the questions. And then if I could think of another one, Jay, for you, I would say that the not being prepared with some intelligent questions is another challenge. The folks who come to a sales interview and have a couple of basic questions like, tell me about the job, or when are you looking to hire somebody? Those are okay questions, but I want some intelligent questions. Something that tells me that they thought about the position. They understand our position in the marketplace. They understand the challenge that's ahead of them in the selling world in our marketplace. So intelligent questions that shows me that they've done their homework. Maybe they've even picked up the phone and talked to an existing salesperson here. Or maybe they've talked to a competitor of ours. All of those would be great ways to do your research to make sure you're bringing intelligent questions to the table during the interview.
Okay. So let me ask you this on that note. You've given a couple of answers that were okay in terms of what a candidate can ask. Can you give me 2 intelligent type questions that you think a candidate should ask?
Sure. Yeah. I could. One I would say would be something around I want them to understand the profile of a successful salesperson here. And if they ask that in the conduct and the construct of the position that they're going for, so in other words, right, Jay, could you tell me about your most successful salesperson here who has a similar job as to the one I'm interviewing with or for? What have they done to be successful? How do they maintain success? What are maybe some of the pitfalls on their way to success? So I can understand how my skill set fits into that road to success, right? And then a good salesperson, once I answer that, they'll then be able to articulate their value prop and tie it to what the goal to, the pathway to the successful goal of a salesperson is, right? And show me that they have the criteria that fits exactly what I'm looking for. Because in essence, what they're asking by that question, Jay, is paint me the picture of a perfect salesperson in your organization. And once I can do that for them, then they can compare and contrast themselves to that perfect picture.
Mm-hmm.
So
once they diagnose the problem, they can prescribe the drug, right? The answer, if you will.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be a good question. And then I always appreciate questions about when they challenge us on our value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what differentiates you, Millward Brown Digital, from your competition? When you go up against your competition in a head-to-head battle, why do you win? Why do you lose? I like those very hard-hitting, no BS, blunt sales questions, so they can, in essence, I want them to interview me too.
Right.
I want them to try to get me to sell them a little bit on why we're the best at what we do.
Right. Makes sense. I always tell my candidates that the interview doesn't start until George says, "So what questions do you have for me?" Right? Especially if it's a sales interview, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to just a couple more questions here.
Sure.
I always start every interview with, the promise to the audience that you will give me the 3 core competencies that you must see in every candidate before deciding to move them to the next round, or in your case, probably make them an offer because you're probably the last person, I suppose, they meet during the interview process. So we talked a little bit about some of the common mistakes that they've made. We talked a little bit about some of the ways that they can get in front of you and some of the things that you would like to see on the resume. But talk to me about the interview itself. For instance, we just hit on their ability to ask really smart, intelligent, and well-founded questions. What other 3 core competencies can you give me that you typically see in some of the best candidates that move on with you?
Sure. I would say the piece that one of the things we haven't talked about that I like to spend some time on in the interview is and I'll do this with all finalist candidates, is I want to understand their personal habits. So I'll ask them questions outside of work. What do you do? And the reason I do that, Jay, is I'm looking to understand how they conduct themselves outside of the workplace. Are they well balanced? Are they experts? What's their day look like? Are they early risers? Do they go to the gym? Do they do competitive things outside of work? Do they have a history of winning? Did they play competitive sports in the past? Have they been involved in any type of competition other than the selling competition that they work in every day? So I spend a lot of time talking to them about their personal lives and their personal habits to make sure that some of the traits that they portray in their personal lives can translate. I believe there's a strong correlation between personal life and work life. And if they've developed good, strong core habits in their personal life, that's going to translate into their work life, especially with younger candidates, where we're looking for people with little or just a few years selling experience, where they don't have as much of a track record in selling to speak about their successes. I really rely on them to talk to me about their personal habits and their past successes, whether it be in college or in other positions or in their personal life. So that would be one of them. What else? What else do I spend time on? I would say I really rely on how they interact and behave with others in the interview process. So we'll go through a very formal rating system here of candidates by each interviewer, and if there's a red flag by any of the interviewers, that candidate is out. And what I mean by that is sometimes candidates save up all their energy and best performances for the ultimate decision maker, right? And in this case, that would be me. And they don't necessarily take seriously their recruiter, perhaps, or an HR person who might be involved, or another salesperson that they meet with here on the team. And that's a problem, right? We want a candidate who will come in and be prepared for all the people that they talk to, show the utmost professionalism and respect for all the people involved in the process. And if we feel like that they don't do that, again, behavior during an interview process translates very closely to behavior that they will have with their clients. So we look for those red flags as well.
Okay. And what would the third one be?
Third one. Ooh, covered a lot.
maybe we talked about it a little bit earlier when you talk about the person's ability, which I think is a really good one. That's one of my favorites, actually. Anyhow, is people, they have the ability to ask intelligent questions, to go that second and third level, to really get an understanding of and really qualify the opportunity like they would any opportunity that they would have on a prospecting call.
Right. Well, this might be a little bit different from other organizations, but one of the things that we do, which is really important in our evaluation, once a candidate gets to the final step through the initial phone screen, through some face-to-face interviews, we even do a behavioral and experience type online assessment of them, see how their skills translate into this position. The last step, we'll have them come in and we'll have them present. And what they're presenting on is two different things. One is they're going to present on something that they're very, very comfortable with. It could be a sport, a hobby, a past experience, a past job, something they know well. 10-minute presentation with 5 minutes of Q&A. And then we transition to have them present for 10 more minutes on our company. And some basic data that they're going to present to us, the people in the room, like we are a client, like they got the job, and now they have a face-to-face meeting with a client, and it's 10 minutes of the presentation and 5 minutes Q&A. You learn a tremendous amount about a candidate in those situations, particularly when they're presenting, surprisingly, when they're presenting their personal topic, the topic that they're comfortable with. A lot of information about the candidate comes out in that session. And that can make or break people here. We probably have a 50% turn down rate at that step.
I know we're running long on time here, but I'm just
Sure.
just a curious question. I wonder, does their demeanor and energy level or excitement or confidence level dip from when they really know about something versus when they start talking to you? Is that one of the pitfalls that they might run into? You can just tell that they're not all that confident in what they're speaking about?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that shows if they do their homework, and we don't give them any rules when we give them the data that they're speak to.
Yep.
So they can do anything they want. They can call anybody to prepare for this. And people who just try to wing it, they get uncomfortable, and their confidence dips. And the people who pull out all the stops to be prepared, they kick it. And they do a great job.
Yep. That's what I figured. That's great. So personal habits. So 3 core competencies, just to recap. Personal habits. What they're doing outside of work can certainly translate into future success there at within Millward Brown. Let's see here, how they interact with others. Some of the red flags that might come up if they're not respecting the process with recruiters or human resources or anybody else before they get to you. And then, that final presentation and where their energy level sort of stays or dips depending on their confidence level. And obviously we talked about their ability to ask strategic, intelligent questions. So those are 4 great competencies and something that I think candidates should focus on. So we'll get you out of here on this, and I think you've been great, and I think hopefully a lot of people will get a lot of good information from this. But last question is,
Sure.
Are you hiring? If so, if you want to give the specific positions for which you're hiring, that'd be great. And then also, how should people go about getting in touch with you if they are interested in applying?
Yeah, great. I appreciate the commercial opportunity here. We are hiring. We're hiring for the field as well as for inside sales positions. So the real simple, I'll keep this short and sweet. If anybody is interested, have them give me a call at 508-733-1008. That's my cell phone. And my email is george.donovan, Donovan, at millwardbrown.com. And we are flexible on the field position as to where it sits. Could be any one of these cities: Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, or LA. So anybody in any of those cities should give me a call who's interested in selling custom research. And then for the inside position, it's a Boston-based position, and it's selling a syndicated research tool, so a software as a service tool on a subscription basis to mid-tier customers. I'm happy to talk to anybody qualified.
Fantastic. George Donovan, Chief Sales Officer at Millward Brown Digital, a.k.a.
BD.
MBD. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, Jay. My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Bye-bye.
Bye.